The man pretended to pull out a gun. He walked toward the nervous Paul. He smiled wickedly and reached for a secret place of Paul.
Get your hands off my mother junk!
It's a real alien. The police hurriedly called his partner. Another policeman raised his gun and looked for Paul, but he only saw a human being. He thought it was a misunderstanding. However, when he turned his head, the real Paul was at the door. The police officer was so scared that he was about to shoot. Nick pushed him away in time, and he and Paul ran out onto the street. Simon arrived just in time. They hid in the car and sped away. Paul had just escaped from Area 51. He was being chased by the police. Suddenly, Simon slammed on the brakes. A bird crashed into the car window. Paul rubbed his hands together. He gently picked up the bird. As he activated his superpower, the bird miraculously came back to life. However, the next second, Paul ate it. Simon and Nick were shocked.
I'm not gonna eat a dead bird, am I?
After finishing their snacks, they continued their escape. The police hadn't caught up yet. Paul seemed very relaxed. To regain their strength, they decided to spend the night at an RV campground. While they were chatting, a woman saw Paul's leg. The next day, Ruth curiously found Simon, unable to refuse. Simon had no choice but to let her get in the car. Ruth was a devout believer in God. After hearing that Simon was a scientist, she began to preach to him. Paul, who was in the bathroom, couldn't help but argue with her. They argued through the door.
How do you explain me?
Ruth fainted. It was clear that Paul had destroyed her will. Simon felt he had to take Ruth with him. Otherwise, she would expose Paul's whereabouts. So Paul sneaked into his boss's room to retrieve his passport. Unexpectedly, the boss opened the door. His faith was also shaken. Paul hurriedly fled. The man chased after him with a gun. At the last moment, Paul jumped and was pulled into the car by Simon. They narrowly escaped, but the man picked up Paul's self-portrait and immediately reported it to the police. The police immediately gave chase. When Ruth woke up, she thought Paul was the devil. She immediately knelt down to pray. Paul saw that Ruth had lost sight in one eye, so he placed his hand on her forehead. Soon, Ruth's illness transferred to Paul's eye, and her eye was healed. Paul's eyes were also restored. It was a miracle. Ruth accepted this fact and decided to join the journey.